I think that last week's, slap in the face against the Giants is going to kind of refocus this team, at least for this week, and show that last week was an anomaly. Jalen Hurts isn't a 3-interception-a-game quarterback. He's done a pretty good job taking care of the ball all season until last week.
It's a Football Friday here on Birds 365. Thanks for streaming in with us. And while you're at it, look at that smiling, happy face. There's the reason that you need to like this show right now. Hit that like button because we've got the handsome Ed Kracz, Gameday Kracz, joining us here on Birds 365. You look like you're ready for some football, Kracz.
I'm always ready for football, Jody.
Yeah, look at that. Wow.
Yeah, man.
That is some morning excitement. We needed that. I said, not a lot of juice down at practice yesterday, Ed Kracz. You getting that feeling this week? Got all these NFC East games, and they're in the middle, like a little desert island is the New York Jets.
It's up to us to bring the juice, John. If we want juice, it's a BYOJ. Bring your own juice, baby.
No, BYOJ is bring your own Jets. Be careful, Kracz. Be careful.
Yeah. Hey, Jets are a live dog in this game, if you ask me.
Oh, wow. Maybe
Tell us
you got
why.
a low prediction.
Why do you think the Jets present issues or problems for the Eagles?
Well, I think they're running the ball pretty good, right? They got the running back, what's his name? Tevin Coleman. He had a pretty nice game last week. The team ran for 157 yards. The Eagles haven't been, they gave up yards on the ground early in the season, and then teams haven't been able to get too much on the ground. The Giants, I think, only had 70 yards against them. But, I think this is a Jets team that can run the ball, and, that's going to be a test for the Eagles defense to stop them. I love Elijah Moore. I think he's a very dangerous rookie for Zach Wilson. And I also like Zach Wilson. Here we are, week 13. I know he was injured, but I think he's going to keep progressing as the rest of this season goes along and give Jets fans some confidence going into next year in Zach Wilson. And I think, he could give the Eagles some trouble in this game. So, the run game, the improving Zach Wilson, I like their defensive line. I think it's pretty underrated. Quinnen Williams is very good. This John Franklin Myers has shown some nice things this season. And they have a good linebacking core too. So, I think the Jets are I don't want to say they're the best 3-8 team in the league, but I think they could give the Eagles some trouble here.
Yeah, best 3-8 team in the league. That's the most positivity, Jody Mack. It's Jody Mack week, of course, as the Jets fan. But what about the Eagles in-house? I'm most concerned about obviously, the Eagles, to my surprise, Ed, did not play the competitive advantage game this week. I thought that's the way they go because that's the way Nick Sirianni's been going. And we'd say, we don't know. We'll see Friday if Jalen Hurts is able to go, Miles Sanders, Jason Kelsey. They all talked to us. They all said they're playing. The question to me is, are they finishing? I mean, these guys are banged up.
Yeah, and, they have a bye week on the other side of this game. And, players, I'm sure, are looking forward to it. This will be their 13th straight game. This is a very late bye. In fact, I think this is the final bye of the NFL weekend. And so that players are looking forward to it. Now, are they going to be able to put all their focus into, this last game before the bye against the Jets team, who I think they're favored by a touchdown? It's going to be interesting. You mentioned the no juice thing yesterday, and that could be, a big factor in this game. Are they going to come out ready to go and ready to empty the tank as they head into the bye? Or are they just going to come out and go through the motions and, look forward to Monday when they can finally get away from the facility and from their teammates and take a break and be with family, friends, whoever? That's another reason I kind of like the Jets in this game a little bit is because of that. We'll see how the Eagles finish, and you talk about the competitive advantage thing that Nick Sirianni liked to do earlier. It looks to me like Jalen Hurts is going to play. It looks to me like Nate Herbig is going to be your right guard in place of Jack Driscoll. And they were two big questions coming into the week, but they seem to have been solved by the players themselves, really. The offensive line has talked about Nate Herbig at right guard. Jalen Hurts himself said his ankle's fine. He's going to go. And even Miles Sanders came out and said that his ankle is good enough to let him play Sunday. But we'll see how effective him and Hurts can be on these ankle injuries.
Here's a defensive scheme question for you. You mentioned Elijah Moore, and the rookie wide receiver has had a nice start to his career with the Jets this year. But the Jets are down wide receivers for this game. Corey Davis from the Titans, their big free agent offseason acquisition, not going to play. Keenan Cole, they got as a free agent during this offseason, also out, COVID issues. So the Jets wide receiver core is not as good as it can be. If they use Elijah Moore in the slot, which they have done, but they also have Crowder, who is a slot. Their two best receivers coming into this game are both actual slot guys, which I don't know if they're going to be used in the slot or they're going to be used outside because their outside guys aren't good to go. I know Darius Slay always wants to play the other team's best wide receiver, and they've given him a chance to do a little of that here in the second half of the season, not so much in the first half. What if they put more in the slot and just leave him there? Is Maddox going to cover him the whole game?
Well, I would suspect Maddox would cover him. You know, maybe you kind of mix and match corners. But listen, Maddox has had a very nice season as well. I think he's capable of covering just about any slot receiver in this league. But you're right about Slay. He likes to go against the other team's best receivers, and we'll see how they elect to play more. If he's really their only viable threat in the receiving game, and Crowder is as well. And listen, these guys will probably have to line up outside just because of, like you mentioned, Jody, they're a little shorthanded at that spot. So, you're going to probably want to give them some outside reps and see how they can fare on, in one-on-one matchups on the outside. But I would suspect that, Maddox would cover more and maybe even bring a linebacker in to help with that, or a safety, kind of double him as he heads out into his route. But, listen, Moore's the kind of receiver I think that the Eagles hoped they were getting in Jalen Reagor, and it just hasn't worked out that way. I like this Moore kid. I think he has 4 touchdowns. So the Eagles are going to have to find a way to play him. I think they'll initially start with Maddox on him and see how he fares. And if he needs help, they'll give him help. But, yeah, they're going to when you mark the other team's weapons, Elijah Moore checks a big box. And I think Tevin Coleman does as well, covering him out of the backfield and in that run game. 157 yards by a Jets rushing offense last week is pretty significant. And if they can continue to grow that, then they might have something here.
I would argue Houston Texans, though, would be that context, at least a little bit, Ed. And obviously Michael Carter's injured. He was a big part of the Jets offense. But the biggest part is obviously the quarterback. And they've had so many issues at the quarterback position, played 4 different guys, including our old friend Joe Flacco. Zach Wilson is back healthy. He's the guy. I think it's interesting because the Eagles love Zach Wilson. And if you go all the way back to the draft, sort of the first linchpin to the move back before they came back up, remember they went down in the draft, they knew there was going to be a firewall between them and Zach Wilson, and they couldn't get him. Now, we had Brian Costello on earlier in the week from the New York Post. A lot of similarities between Zach Wilson and Jalen Hurts in this way. He says he's good off platform. He makes some unbelievable throws, but when he's asked to play in the structure of the offense, he hasn't performed well. Sound familiar? That's what the Eagles are dealing with.
Yeah. Well, listen, again, Wilson had some injury time this year, and that might have kind of set him back a little bit. I mean, I think he's a quarterback that can grow within the structure of the offense, just like I think Jalen Hurts can grow within the structure of the offense. And it's a situation where it's not going to happen overnight for either of these players, especially when you factor in the injury issue with Zach Wilson. So I just, I think over these last, what do the Jets have? They're 3-8, so they have 6 games left. I think if they can keep Wilson healthy, I think you're going to see him improve as the season goes on, because you're right. The Eagles really liked him. They saw something in Zach Wilson that probably would have let them draft him had they been able to get in position to do so. But they weren't. He's with New York, and I think he's in good hands with Mike LaFleur and an offensive structure that he's going to grow into.
All right, different people have different opinions on this. So I want to certainly get yours, Ed, and John, if you want to chime in, feel free to. How much does Joe Flacco help the Jets this week as an advanced scout? They're hoping Joe doesn't have to play. They're hoping Wilson plays and takes every snap, and Joe gets to just hold on to a clipboard, maybe wear a ball cap. But this, like right now, today, tomorrow, leading into the game on Sunday, how much can Flacco help out with information on the Eagles, their play calling, their verbiage, what they try and do, the talent of the players that will be playing against the Jets on Sunday? Some people think that that's something that only the smart teams and the best teams take advantage. And other people say poppycock. They don't know. They changed a couple of signal calls. There's no advance notice in this league. How do you think Flacco has an effect on this game on Sunday?
Yeah, I think he'll have an effect. I mean, we talk about this all the time when players from other teams join the opposing team and what kind of intel they can impart. And I think, at most positions, it's a pretty limited base. But with Joe Flacco, he was the quarterback in this system. He knows, the strengths of this receiving core, the weaknesses of this receiving core. He does know, the basic scheme of the offense. And I think that's a valuable resource. And I think Robert Saleh is a good enough coach to be able to pick Joe's mind and find out what the Eagles do and what they don't do. And I think that will be a benefit to them, even though he probably won't see the light of day during the 60 minutes of the game. But behind the scenes, I think he'll be a very good resource. I'd be interested to see what John thinks about that.
It is interesting because Robert Saleh got asked that very question by our buddy Martin Frank on the conference call. And Robert's like, not that big of a deal.
He downplayed it?
Yeah, he really downplayed it. And I don't think it's because of Joe Flacco. I mean, Joe's a veteran guy. If anybody knows this system, it's probably Jalen Hurts raves about Joe Flacco when he was here and his sort of veteran wisdom as the soothsayer. But, I mean, the Eagles' offense is pretty stinking simple. So I think, Robert Saleh could put the film in, and he knows what they're doing. The problem is, can you stop it? Because the quarterback adds that extra dimension to the run game, and that's the issue. It's always about execution. So, maybe if Gardner Minshew was in the game and it was a little bit more open as far as the passing aspect, maybe it would be a bigger edge or advantage because Joe would be that type of quarterback, just dropping back and throw. He would have a little bit more intel on what Nick Sirianni would do in those types of situations, but they're not going to do that. So I think that's what Robert Saleh was kind of alluding to. Like, I know what's going on, but coaches have egos too. He doesn't need help.
See, I would have Joe sitting right next to me in the film room and have him watching film right with me. And yeah, we have to stop it, but how can we make our cornerbacks play better? Or what kind of leverage situations can we put them in that will help us here? And, maybe Joe helps in that regard, but maybe it's the old competitive advantage for Robert Saleh.
Yeah, maybe downplayed it on purpose.
Yeah, downplaying it on purpose, whatever. But, Joe's a smart guy. He's been around the league a long time. I think you'd be foolish not to pick his brain.
All right, Ed, Eagles last week ended up running the ball more than they were passing it, even though you listen to some of the critiques. How did they get away from the run? Well, they really didn't. The Giants just did a good enough job blocking it. And when Jason Kelce is out there, damn if that isn't a domino effect. When he leaves, it seems like everybody else gets a little bit lesser on that offensive line. Assuming help from Kelce, even though he didn't practice yesterday, he does get back out there quicker than any other offensive lineman I know. How balanced do you think the run-pass ratio is this week? 2-1, even more so than that? Will they attempt to run the football down the New York Jets' throats on Sunday?
Well, it's going to be interesting to see how healthy their backfield is. Jordan Howard doesn't look like he's going to play. He's still not practicing. Miles Sanders is gimpy with the ankle. Boston Scott has had an illness the last couple of days. He hasn't practiced. It's a non-COVID illness, but, who knows how healthy he'll be on Sunday. And then you have a rookie, Kenny Gainwell, and of course Hurts is going to do what he does. He'll run for 50-plus yards, whatever. But, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how healthy this backfield is. And, look, we saw everybody was, all giddy about this run game and, it's running for over 200 yards and doing things that we haven't seen an Eagles offense do in over 50 years by running the ball. But I think that they're going to try to pass it again. I think they're going to want to get Jalen Hurts to get rid of this bad taste in his mouth from his 3-interception game last week. And I think they're going to look to throw the ball more. I think they're going to get Dallas Goedert involved. I think the Eagles kind of got stung last week with this passing game that really was stuck in the mud. Devontae Smith was targeted twice. Dallas Goedert had 3 targets, 1 catch, 0 yards. I mean, that hurts. And I think they're going to want to come out, no pun intended on Hurts, but I think they're going to want to come out and get Jalen Hurts involved in this offense from a passing standpoint and show that, last week was an anomaly because the Eagles did run for over 200 yards last week, but we saw there's more to it than just run, run, run. You have to be able to throw the football, and they couldn't do that last week. And, give the Giants credit. They only rushed 4 on a lot of their pass plays. Dropped 7 into coverage, did some things to take away what Jalen Hurts was used to seeing. And then another thing they did was they hit him after he would do those RPOs and hand the ball. They would still hit him and make him feel that they were playing him. And I think the accumulation of those hits and that defense caught up to Hurts. So I think the Eagles are going to try to run the ball. I don't know who they're going to hand it off to on a consistent basis because of this situation in the backfield, but I think the Eagles are going to try to throw the ball and prove that last week was an anomaly, and they're going to want to get Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert involved.
Now, I know the name I didn't hear there, Ed, Jalen Reagor. I did not hear Jalen Reagor. He's going to play because he gives the Eagles the best chance to win, according to Nick Sirianni.
Right.
At what point do you have to pull the plug on Jalen Reagor?
Well, I don't think they'll pull it this year. I think there's a good chance it gets pulled in the offseason. It's going to be a tough situation to try to trade him unless he builds up his stock a little bit over the final month and a half here. But I just don't see how you can go back to him and count on him to make a play. Maybe they'll try to get him a little more involved in the run game, kind of like they did a few games ago. And with this backfield being in the shape that it's in, maybe they'll try to get him started on the ground. But, to put him in a high leverage situation, I think he has to rebuild that trust and that confidence somehow because as Nick Sirianni also said, this is an offense that runs through 6 and 88, Smith and Goddard. For some reason, the game plan didn't lead them to those 2 receivers, and they went to Jalen Reagor. And again, probably credit to the Giants. They took away some things that Smith and Goddard were used to doing, and that left Reagor as really the only option, and he showed that he's not ready for that type of situation yet. And it's going to take him, I think, some time to rebuild the trust from the coaching staff and maybe even from Jalen Hurts to go back to him. So I wouldn't expect a high-volume target game from Jalen Reagor, but I would think that maybe they'll get him involved in the run game a little bit more, especially given how this backfield is with the injuries and the illness and whatnot.
All right, Ed, the first time on this week for you, John and I talked about Jalen Reagor on item yesterday. So I've got John's opinion on it. I need yours. If we can all agree that Reagor's play Sunday against the Giants was less than stellar, or in other words, he sucked. If there's 100% blame to give out on his god-awful game against New York last week, what percentage does Jalen himself take? What percentage does his quarterback take, who continued to throw the ball to him even though he had proved he can't catch it? What percentage does Nick Sirianni take because he keeps feeding Reagor reps, and if he's out there and the defense says, we dare you to throw it to him, yeah, the quarterback just might pull the trigger? And what percentage does Howie Roseman et al., the entire organization, that they didn't provide the coaching staff with other options? John has made it blatantly clear to me that Greg Ward can't play, that he's just not good enough, that he doesn't fit their system, that they're afraid to put him out there on the field. Well, Howie Roseman gave him this group of wide receivers. So of the 4 areas where I think blame could be shared, Reagor, his quarterback, his coach, the organization? How would you break down the 100% of Jalen Reagor's failure last week?
I'd put it on Reagor at the top. I mean, I'm not real good with percentages. I could give you percentages, but chances are it won't add up to 100 or it'll add up to 133.
We round off here on Birds 365 all the time. Just get close to 100, Eddie. We won't knock you.
I'm gonna give. All right. I'll try to make this easy for me. 50% on Jalen Reagor. Listen, you have to catch football. And there were two passes that he should have caught. Now, should it have come down to those two plays in the game against the New York Giants, who weren't playing particularly well? No, it shouldn't have. But the fact is, it did, and he dropped those balls. And, shame on him for doing that, okay? So I'm giving half of the blame to Jalen Reagor himself. He has to make plays, big spots, and he didn't do that. And then I'm going to give another percentage to Nick Sirianni. I'll give him maybe 25. Well, let's give him 30% of the blame for this. He should have seen what the Giants were doing defensively. There should have been some adjustments, and maybe you could point to Jonathan Gannon on that, or rather Shane Steichen too, because he's his assistant offensive coordinator. The two of those guys should have diagnosed a little bit quicker what the Giants were doing and tried to find ways to counteract how they were playing Smith and Goddard. Maybe use a little bit more motion. And then what's curious about Sirianni's game plan is, during the game, I think it was the first possession out of the locker room at halftime, the Eagles came up with a 3rd and 2 and a 4th and 2, and he threw it both times. And this was after running the ball for 27 yards to start this drive, then 5 yards, then 3 yards. And he threw it twice, including once to Reagor. That would have been a first down had it been a better throw, had Jalen Reagor been able to make a better play on it. But it was interesting to see that 2 cracks from 3rd and 2 and then 4th and 2, he threw the ball instead of running it. So I'm going to put some of this on Sirianni as well for his game planning, for his failure to kind of diagnose what the Giants were doing, to figure out ways to get Smith and Reagor more involved. And then what did I give him? 30%. So I have 30% left. I'll give I'll give maybe 15% of that to Hurts and 15% to the organization, or maybe 20 to Hurts and 10 to the organization, because I think Hurts, he made some bad decisions in that game. That first interception he threw down when they reached the 20, that could have been called a PI, a pass interference call, because it looked like Watkins kind of got hooked.
Yeah, why did Fox never give us a replay of that? You think they just didn't have it? Because they certainly commented it on the broadcast. I don't know about Merrill and Mike, but they said on Fox, oh, it looks like he may have been interfered with. And then they never showed us a replay. What the hell?
Yeah, listen, I don't think they're getting the first team production crews on these games anymore. So, maybe that had something to do with it.
Yeah.
But, to me, it looked like Watkins got hooked down near the 5-yard line and kind of got thrown off his route. And that made it an easy interception for, I think it was Darnay Holmes who picked it. But, that was a tough one. But, Jalen Hurts, that interception at the goal line, my goodness, you can't have that. You just can't. I mean, and maybe that's someone Sirianni too. I'll give, listen, Hurts is a competitor. He's in the heat of the moment in that situation. Nick Sirianni has to get in his ear and his helmet and say, listen, we have 8 seconds left. We already have 3 points in our back pocket. If that play's not there, if this play's not there, throw it away. Throw it in the back of the end zone. Don't go running all over the place like he did. That's all on Jalen Hurts right there. That's just a bad decision by Hurts. But he's trying to make a play, so I'm going to give Sirianni some of that. Sirianni, sure, Hurts has played a lot of football, and he should know. But you're in the moment. You want to get a touchdown in that situation. As the head coach, you need to say, listen, Jalen, we're calling this quick hit to Goddard or whoever. If it's not there, just chuck it to the back of the end zone. Get rid of it. Throw it out of the end zone. Didn't do that. Squandered opportunity. And then Howie, listen, you have to give some blame to him as this receiving core. We're still talking about how inefficient.
Unbelievable. You got to give more blame to Howie Roseman, because we're still talking about it. They can't fix it. Ed, you brought up the Quez Watkins play, which you're right. On first glance at the stadium, I thought they were just on the wrong page, Hurts and Watkins, and it looked like Hurts thought he was going to continue across the field, which was the case. And you mentioned Quez did get hooked, but you got to fight through that a little bit. You got to try to fight through that. And then the last play of the game where everyone's upset because Jalen Hurts is not a touch thrower that can lob the football over James Bradbury. They think he's wide open. The lost part of that is Quez Watkins did a terrible job on the crossing route and what he's trying to accomplish. I mean, this position is an organizational failure. And can you imagine if they didn't double down with DeVonta Smith? And DeVonta's basically so naturally gifted, they can't screw him up. I think. I hope.
Yeah.
It's been amazing, this organizational failure.
Yeah. Well, listen, and again, some of that's got to be on the coaches, too. I mean, they have to develop these guys. They have to teach them how to run the proper
And that's their position. That's Nick's position.
This is Nick Sirianni's ballywick. This is his wheelhouse. What Eagle wide receiver on this year's team has improved? None.
Nobody.
Watkins' numbers are up because he's just getting that much more of an opportunity. But who can you say, and John and Ed, you guys were there, first day down at the camp, from day one to today, who's gotten better as a wide receiver over the course of the year under Nick Sirianni? I would suggest zippity-doo-dah, nobody.
Right. Well, it's hard to disagree with that. I mean, we haven't seen – I mean, even DeVonta Smith hasn't taken that next step from college. I mean, he's doing what he did in college, but, you know, he needs to do more. He needs to figure out ways to get open a little more consistently. But, yeah, you're right. Quez Watkins certainly hasn't. Maybe J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. I mean, he's got 2 catches for crying out loud.
But you know why? J.J. because
they taught J.J. Arcega-Whiteside how to block. Good job there, coaching staff.
The only reason, though, that J.J. hasn't improved because he was at the ground floor to begin with. He had sunk to the basement. You couldn't go down any further. Now he's back on the first floor. But, yeah, remember how much time Nick would spend with the receivers in training camp?
Very hands-on. Very hands-on.
I would point out, I said, look, you got to be the head coach. Get the hell away from the receivers. It hasn't worked. It just hasn't worked.
And listen, Aaron Moorhead was brought back here. I mean, everybody thought he was leaving. Aaron Moorhead himself thought he was going to be let go, but the Eagles and Nick Sirianni chose to bring him back. So maybe you have to look there too, as Aaron Moorhead. You know, what kind of job is he doing as the position coach? But because it's your job. Listen, Roseman gave him who he thought were competent receivers. You know, even Hightower hasn't been able to be a factor after we saw some good things from him early last year in his rookie year. He's kind of, fallen off the radar here. So listen, these players have to be developed. Howie has given him a group of receivers and it has entrusted them to a staff that needs to make them improve, needs to figure out ways to get them to improve. And they just haven't done that. And that is surprising because, like you said, John, we saw Nick Sirianni very hands-on, touching these receivers, pointing them in the direction they should go back in training camp. A lot of his time was spent with the receivers. Now, maybe as the season has gone along, we're not out there watching practices. We're not seeing it. Maybe he has kind of taken his hands off of that and turned it over more to Aaron Moorhead. But whatever's happening just isn't good enough. And I don't think you can just say it's Howie. I think a lot of it's on the coaches to develop and to teach these guys how to do the right things.
Let me ask you about one of the results from last week. We touched on DeVonta Smith. We haven't gone over to the tight end yet. Dallas Goedert had exactly the same amount of yards that John McMullen had, Ed Kracz had, or Jody McDonald had in that game on Sunday. 0. He had 1 catch for no yards. That's not good. They just paid Dallas Goedert as one of the higher paid tight ends in the National Football League. We get it. When it's your turn and you're one of the top, you're going to end up being the top or very close to it because that's the way the NFL works. All the salaries continue to go up. But then expectations have to get into the ballpark as well. I don't think 1 catch for 0 yards is reaching those expectations.
Not even close.
Is Dallas Goedert good enough that when the other team decides, well, we're going to work real hard at keeping Dallas Goedert from getting the football, the best of the best find ways to get open. The best of the best find ways to make catches and plays and move the ball down the field. Dallas Goedert couldn't do that. And I know there's blame to go around on the quarterback and the play calling and everything else, but Dallas has got to take some of it. How disappointing was Goddard's basic shutout last week, knowing that the Eagles are committed to him for many millions for years to come?
Yeah, listen, I think he can get open. I think he can run routes, not as well as Zach Ertz can, but he learned under Ertz. I think he's capable of getting open. And, I think he was left in the block a lot this past week for whatever reason. I think he did a lot more blocking than he did running pass patterns. But, he has to be involved. I'm not sure he was that involved in the game planning for the passing game for whatever reason. But I think he can get open. I think he's good enough to be able to get open. But again, I think it just comes down to the game planning with him, and they just didn't involve him much in the offense. I mean, 3 targets, that guy should be getting, 5 to 10 targets every single game. It just didn't happen for him. And I think that's on the game plan, because I think Goddard can get open if you let him go out there and run patterns. But I think they left him in the block a lot. And he talked about that. He said that he was pretty heavily involved in the run game. And, I'm not sure how often he went out for passes in this game.
Yeah. Last one from me, Ed. And before I get to it, I want to mention, obviously, Ed and myself at SI.com's Eagle Maven, SI.com/NFL/ Eagle Maven, or just EagleMaven.com. Ed, we haven't talked about the defense much this week at all. Is that because of all the issues on the offense and everything to talk about there, or has Jonathan Gannon settled this group down to where you say, there's some talent issues we know on the back seven, especially at linebacker and safety, but for what they have, this is turning into a pretty good group. Is that where we are? 11th ranked defense in the NFL as I look at it right now.
Yeah, very good against the run as well, which will be a nice test for against the Jets. But yeah, I think that this was an offensive game. I mean, and literally and figuratively, I mean, this was offensive to fans who had to watch this Eagles offense struggle for 3 quarters and 5 seconds before they figured out how to score a touchdown. And I think that's where the biggest disappointment lies. So yeah, the defense does get overlooked in this case. All the attention is on the offense, and 7 points in a modern NFL football game, where all the rules are slanted toward the offense. You should score more than 7 points. Jalen Hurts has 3 interceptions. That's certainly been a huge talking point. So yeah, the defense has been overlooked. Has it stabilized? I mean, they certainly played a very good game. They are playing well. I'm still concerned with Alex Singleton. I did a story on him, and he's their leading tackler again. He's going to lead this team in tackles for a second straight year, but a lot of those tackles are after some yards have been gained. So I'm still concerned that not having, and I never thought I'd say this, Davion Taylor available would hurt this defense. So listen, they should play well against the Jets again. I don't think this is going to be a real high-scoring game. But the Eagles defense has stabilized. I think they're getting good play from their cornerbacks, Nelson, Slay, and Maddox. And by the way, that Nelson pass interference that set up that first Giants touchdown was just ridiculous. Bad call. Was not a PI. But I like the way Nelson is aggressive. I like the way the cornerbacks are playing. And we've seen Fletcher Cox kind of up his game since this trade deadline passed. He's been more of a factor. So, yeah, the defense is playing well. I think Jonathan Gannon might be figuring out what this defense can and can't do, and he's playing more to its strengths. Now, we'll see how that holds up over the final month and a half here, but good signs so far these last few games. But, again, overlooked because of a bad offensive performance against the Giants.
All right, Gameday Ed Kracz, much like myself and Johnny Mack, you thought the Eagles were going to win last Sunday and win relatively handily. We were all on that train, which got derailed by Big Blue. How's the train running up to MetLife Stadium again? Pulls in, Eagles get off. They get back on it a winner. They get back on it a blowout winner. They get back on it with Jordan Mailata crying again. How does the game go on Sunday between the Eagles and the Jets?
Yeah, Go up to Jordan Mailata and ask him why he's such a crybaby and see what he does. 6'8", 380 pounds coming down.
Oh, no, I'll say that right here on Birds 365.
Yeah. By the way,
I don't need to go in the locker room to ask that question.
Jason Kelsey got asked all those toughness questions before you give us your prediction. He was trying to come up with an explanation or a definition of what a tough guy is, and he couldn't come up with one, and he finally brought up a Bronx Tale. But I said the definition is easy. Because Kelsey cries all the time now. He's Dick Vermeil now, too. Jordan Mailata can cry. And nobody's going to go up to him and call him a crybaby. That's a tough guy when you can cry at any moment. And everybody knows, guess what? That guy can still kick my ass. That's a tough guy.
Yeah, those guys wear their emotions on their sleeves, both good and, in the crying realm. But, yeah, my prediction, listen, these two teams scrimmaged against each other in the summer. That's kind of been a big talking point this week is how much, you take away from that. And, I don't really think you can take much. But, Alex Singleton made a good point that it got chippy in those practices back in August. And, he thinks that it's going to be a pretty chippy game this week as well. He's not saying it's going to be and he said this, a full out, all out first quarter brawl or anything, but he said there's going to be some chippiness in this game left over from the summer. But I think, listen, I'm tempted to take the Jets, but I'm going to go with the Eagles in this one. But I think the Jets.
I thought you were leaning Jets.
I know. I do think the Jets are going to cause the Eagles problems here, just because of some of the personnel issues I mentioned earlier, but because the Eagles are going into a bye. I'm sure they're really looking forward to it. Are their minds going to be right? But I think that last week's, slap in the face against the Giants is going to kind of refocus this team, at least for this week, and show that last week was an anomaly. Jalen Hurts isn't a 3-interception-a-game quarterback. He's done a pretty good job taking care of the ball all season until last week. So I think kind of the way they lost that game, had the Eagles won last week, maybe I'd feel differently, but I just think that they're going to want to come out and prove that they are a better team than what they showed last week. And are the Jets going to be able to keep up? I don't think so. I think the Eagles will win the game. I think they'll put up 23, and I think the Jets will put up 17. So I'm going to go Eagles 23, Jets 17.
Okay, and that means the Eagles are at least in part lifted to victory by the special teams player of the month in the NFL. Yeah. You got 3 Jake Elliott field goals in that 23 there, Kracz?
Or a missed PAT, Jody.
He's the special teams player of the month. He can't miss a PAT now.
You know how these kickers are. They're, you just never know. It's all mental. How comfortable are they in the mental
December's a different
space?
Story than November, huh?
Yeah. So, listen, I'll say positively, yes. 3 Jake Elliott field goals. It won't be a missed PAT.
Very good. All right, Eddie, always a pleasure, buddy. Thank you much.
Guys.
We'll be reading you after the game on Sunday. Thanks for coming on with us. That is Ed Kracz here with us on Birds 365. Yeah, I'm with him. I think it could be a big Jake Elliott day. I think he picks up in December right where he left off in November.
Had a great season, very consistent, and that's one of those things. That's what you love from your kicker. If you're not talking about your kicker, you got a good situation. Same thing with all the specialists. If you're not talking about them, they're doing their jobs.
Quickie question for you, and we got to get a break in and bring up hour number 2. I just started to feel this way, and I've only been watching the NFL for 50 years. With the fact that kicking seems to be more difficult than it's ever been. They're asking them to kick for over 50 yards that much more often, but they've made a lot of changes and nuances. Nobody kicks off anymore as far as run backs go. Just please kick it to the back of the end zone, saying take it to 25. But with field goals, I have that much more confidence on a guy who puts it dead center between the uprights. I know it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether you just sneak it inside the upright or you just cross the crossbar. Give me a guy who kicks it right down the friggin' middle with a little distance to spare, and I just have that much more confidence in him. And that's why I think Jake Elliott won and deserved the player of the month.
And that's why I love Justin Tucker. I have a crush on Justin Tucker. I mean, everything is right down the middle. Everything is above the highest point of the goalpost. That's the greatest kicker of all time. But, it's interesting because Jake Elliott is now helped by Tyler Brown, who is the son of Randy Brown, who's from your town, part of the Marlton Mafia, former mayor of Marlton. And he's been around Justin Tucker for a long time. I don't know if I don't know. I asked Jake that yesterday, do you learn anything from a kicker like that? And I don't know if you can do anything. It's up to you, but he's been very consistent. He's been very good this year, Jake Elliott.
Right down the middle, almost every friggin' kick. I hate. Nothing makes me more crazy than when they say he's trying to fade the football.
Yeah,
this isn't golf. Kick it
fade.
between the two sticks. It's pretty damn simple.
Yeah. When you can power it through, just bang it down the middle. I agree with you.
And Jake has done just that. They may need him to do it plenty on Sunday against the Jets. All right, McMullen and McDonald, your Mac and Mac guys, still got a full hour to play almost here on Birds 365. Kracz is on the record. Eagles win. You'll find out.
I thought he fooled me. I thought he was going Jets.
He did a little okie doke on you. He did make it sound like he was leaning toward the Jets. You'll find out what Johnny and I think. That much more. Hour number 2, Birds 365. Coming right back.